days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, right at you. You give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the closest.
Let's go to Sonia. Sonia in Virginia. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show. Thank you for holding.
Hi, Karen. Hi, Olivia. How are you today?
Hey. Great.
So I'm a white woman who married to a black man. I have 2 biracial children. So I listen to y'all to really keep myself aware of how I feel and how I may be interacting in the world that may be appropriate or inappropriate. But I would say, I don't know that you were racist because all the things that Olivia has said and other people, but if I as a white woman had said, oh man, this black lady is helping me, but this little old white lady, this is her supplement probably to her Social Security. I don't know that, but I'm looking at her thinking that I'm going to do that, take my stuff and go back and give it to her. Would I automatically be seen as racist? It might have nothing to do with her being white. Right. I may be thinking my mom is having to supplement her Social Security like this lady right here. And so that's my dilemma that I come to is I don't know that it's racist, but if I had made that choice, I wouldn't just because of my situation. Right. But if I had, would I be seen as racist? I think I would.
Probably. Right. And this is the thing. The racist is a trick bag, right? Because even though your heart may not be, and just because you're raising black children doesn't mean that you are impervious from being racist, right, Sonia? But everybody gets brushed with the same, paint, so to speak. We're all, if you're black, you're this, if you're white, you're that. And how do we even start to become just people, right? If we're not going to set the table for that. And I think you raise a very good point. No, yes, and all things should be considered. Maybe part of that, looking at this older white lady who probably has to work, right? Who should be in retirement, but is not, right?
That's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of stuff. People are hurt. There's a lot of hurt going on. And if you don't have the capacity to even see that because you're blinded by, society says this, that may not be true, because in this instance, I was the one with the power and the ability to be able to deny somebody something that they earned, right? Or at least work for.
Well, and so this is kind of like out of left field, and forgive me, but I'm just in thinking about like power, but like yes, you had the purchasing power in this scenario, like you're a customer, you have control over her wage, but, and again, forgive me, but
come on, Olivia, come on.
But like,
I want to see how that mind works.
And we're going to call her Doris, because you've been calling her Doris.
Yes.
But so if like Doris being a white woman still has power, because all she got to do is say that lady was stealing, here's a black, shopper. Like, she's not powerless just because you are the person who has purchasing power in that place. Like, she as a white woman is still moving with power. So like, again, it's not a vacuum. Like,
I see what you're saying.
Like, I know this is a loose connection.
But do you think the average white person, particularly somebody in service, because that's a different shift. Do you think they perceive themselves as having power? Because I just had a discussion with somebody in Nubia while we were waiting who says, we don't have the power. And I was like, but we do. But power only happens when you take it.
No, that's not true. No, power doesn't only happen when we take it. Power is bestowed upon us, whether we want it or not. This is something that comes with whiteness. And so you're asking the question of, does a white person working in service see themselves as powerful? You can't even ask that question, because white people in general are blind to our own power. So you can't say like we are always going to be like, well, no, I've had it so hard. There may be, of course, there's white folks in this world who recognize our power, who are dealing with that every day, who try to check it, sure. But in general, white people don't interrogate their own power. We just don't. So
how do we have a conversation if this is true? And I actually believe what you're saying is true, that the vast majority of people who are white don't even contemplate or consider it. It just is. It's like, like the skin that they wake up in. How do we have these conversations? Because right now, even politically, it's somebody, the fight, the lust for Trump is because he's going to make sure that we get what we deserve. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And these people who don't deserve, these blacks, these Mexicans, these other, they don't deserve anything because my family worked for this. We deserve this.
Yeah.
And he's going to make sure we get what we are owed. And he's going to make sure these women have sex with us because they don't want us. All these other, they're sleeping with these black men with these big dinglings, and we don't have them. And now they're going to be forced to be barefoot and pregnant. But
it snowballs into this. This is what it is,
Yes.
But I mean, as far as like, how do we have the conversation? We have it day by day and little by little and in the places we can, but as a person who is, a teacher at times and an educator of young people, like my answer is always got to be, we got to get them young. We got to get them young. We got to have these conversations young. Racial identity formation happens very, very young. I mean, younger than I get them, when I get them, they're in high school, but like, racial, like in group and out group dynamics, that's happening at age 4, so by the time I get them in high school, and again, I'm in Kentucky, right? So like, the young white folks that I'm exposed to and that I have in my, classes, it's a very particular, population. Now, it may be a little skewed because they're like the program that I was teaching at is like an art program in Kentucky, and it's like, competitive art program. But these are still like white rural kids coming from the smallest counties of Kentucky. And I get them all in one classroom, and I'm talking to them about their lives, and I'm talking to them about their families, and I'm learning about how their dynamics are and how they eat and how they talk to each other. And these are the things I asked them to write about, so these conversations have to happen every day and at a very young age, because like once they get to adulthood, it's a wrap. I don't want to say it's a wrap, but it kind of is.
So what are you hearing from these kids? I when I first started in 2014 on these airwaves, I was actually working on a book with Keith Ellison, and he was talking about his cousin who was a dentist in Owsley, Kentucky. And he was saying how he could run for, for county, sheriff. He could run for anything and win because people were so appreciative of the work that he was doing. As it didn't matter that he was a black man, but this was a county that was 95% white. And then I started doing research, and it was like at that time in 2014, 5 of the bottom 10 poorest counties, the poorest counties in the country, 5 of them were predominantly white, right? And Owsley being the worst, right? In that, though, they were also Republican and highly, it was wild that they would vote against their dental and their health care for their complexion. It was wild to me that people were so poor, the poorest people in the country, because most people on welfare are white. We don't talk about that. The welfare queen is always depicted a certain kind of way. We always have an image in our mind, but it's really that rural Kentuckian who doesn't have health care, can't feed themselves. They live in a trailer park. They may have, cars on bricks. They're not heavily educated. They're not well read, but they have very strong opinions about what it means to be an American. So what are you hearing, Olivia, from these children? What are they writing without divulging too much of their personal information?
Of course. Yeah. I would never, share anybody's private information, but like overall, the young white people that I have in my classes, these are children of the internet. So I'm always like pleasantly surprised to see how they know the words, they know the words. Like I get a lot of queer kids in my class, so a lot of them are closeted because of, their hometowns. But they know the words, they know the language, they know things like intersectionality, and they know things like, white supremacy, and they can say these things, and they have them, I think, in theory. Like they get a lot of like TikTok content, about like racism.
Okay.
And mix. Most of these kids I'm meeting are pro-Palestine. These are from rural, counties in Kentucky, and they're pro-Palestine, and they're not out to be propagandized. They are not with the shit, when it comes to people feeding them lies. That said, they still very much struggle with, they're struggling against the constant racist socialization that happens in white towns, so like they have this awareness of what is right, what is wrong, like the world they want to live in. They don't consider themselves racist. They consider themselves, against the things that their racist community members are, drilling into them. But they still have issues like letting their Black peers talk in class. They have trouble interrupting and white-splaining things to their Black peers in class. This is a few summers ago, actually, but it sticks with me because this young white, young white woman, she, again, this is a couple years ago, but there was a Black student who was speaking about their experience with racism in their town. They were also from a small town. And she interrupted them during their time to talk. And she just was kind of like citing, like, or spouting things she's heard on the internet, yes. And the reason that happens is because this, and this, and just kind of like, very, white-splaining, and she thought that she was on their side, yes, I see where you're coming from, but she didn't recognize that she's talking over them, that she's telling them the stuff she's read in books about their experience and how that means she knows just as much about it as they do. And like, I had to stop her, I'm going to stop you and I'm going to let this person finish. And then I had to keep her after class and have a conversation, I know that you are trying and you think, sorry, they're doing construction on the building. But I know that you're coming from a place of good intent, but you're not seeing how your white socialization is running you right now. Is running you. And that happens a lot. I see that a lot. I see people this is a student who actually inspired me to write The Truth About White Lies, which I had this student in my classroom in 2017, and I think about them all the time. A student who was so threatened by the brilliance of a particular Black student that I had in this class, greatest student I've ever had to this day. Their name is Drew Webb. They're out there. Drew Webb is one of just the most brilliant writers I've encountered. And there was a student in Drew's class that was so deeply threatened by Drew's brilliance. And Drew wrote a wonderful poem that I still can picture in my mind about what it was like to go shopping at Goodwill. It was a poem about Goodwill, and it was beautiful and layered and complex. And the student who had a problem with Drew wrote a poem that they submitted to me for workshopping, which we would do one-on-ones with the students. They submitted this poem to me for workshopping, and it wasn't a poem, it was a rant. It was a rant talking about how they, at their school back home, they never had people who only wanted to talk about race all the time and who thought that they were so great just because they were Black and like all this stuff. And I'm like, you submitted this to workshop. You gave it to me to read. I don't know what you thought was going to happen here, but you're not going to get the reaction I think you were looking for, which is, oh, poor you, like, do you need help in class? You're a good writer too. Like, I think that's what this student was looking for. I'm never, ever going to give you that. And it was fascinating to me. The irritation, the malice, like this student was so angry, and only because she was sitting next to a brilliant Black writer who was her age. And so these are the things I'm encountering in students. And
today that student could sue you for making her feel bad.
Oh yeah, right. She probably.
No, but you're laughing, but it's
it's true. It's true. Yeah.
My days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, right at you. You give me something to believe in, just what I